What's good, what's good? Let's begin.
What's a father?
When it comes to this fatherhood thing in anime, there are a lot of individuals we could look at and for varying reasons. Jing, from Hunter x Hunter for example, remains a shining example of bummy ass fathers. That man actively put in work to not meet his son, who I might add made it his entire goal in life to meet his father at the time. So like I said, truly inspirational levels of fuck them kids. On the other hand, there are indeed some stand-up examples of fathers in anime. You can look no further than my guy Bardock, the father of Goku from Dragon Ball Z Stay With Me Now. Regardless of the version of his origin that you subscribe to, the end result is my dog spinning solo against the person that enslaved his entire race. After the king of said race was slept via uppercut, mind you. Did my boy display admirable traits like courage, willpower, determination, and an overall goatnisticity-ism? Of course! Do you not see the red bandana? The scar? He still got slimed though. Now, before the Frieza Force collectively began smoking on the Saiyan pack, Bardock has already successfully allowed his son Goku to flee the planet. This is most definitely one of the more passive examples of being a good father in anime, but a good father he was nonetheless. These other three fathers though? Well, let's see, shall we? Isshin Kurosaki. The first, or third, or fourth, if we're gonna count Jing from earlier, father we're gonna be taking a look at in this video is the one Isshin Kurosaki from the popular to hate on anime/manga, Bleach. Not gonna lie, by the time you meet Mr. Kurosaki, he kinda comes across like a goofball. Strikes you as the type of father that is present, but a little over affectionate. Some of you can't relate, alright, my fault. With him primarily being a source of comedy for both his three children and you, the viewer. He also allows Rukia, she really put Ichigo into this Soul Reaper shit, I can't lie to you, to crash in the crib with zero hesitation. So as you can see, rapidly racking up the W father traits. Fast forward to the end portion of the Arrancar arc though, peak Bleach by the way, however, and the real reason we fuck with bro becomes increasingly more apparent. In reality, Isshin is a former captain from Soul Society. Hitsugaya takes over his seat, which instantly marks the swordplay levels as dangerous, like these thugs in the UK. In the world of Bleach, there are three realms, if you will. The human world, Puerco Mundo, where Hollows be kicking it, and lastly, there's Soul Society, which is where Isshin originates from. In the Soul Society, the motherfuckers in black using swords are typically Soul Reapers. The motherfuckers wearing black with a white coat over it are typically captains. Each captain has a division of Soul Reapers that work directly underneath them. With all of this set up in mind, I'm sure you can see why there's more to Ichigo's father than meets the eye. Let's rewind to everything but the rain. Kubo stay cooking when it comes to names and titles I will not hold you, which focuses on volume 60 of the manga. In this volume, hella future key players are already active, including a one Sosuke Aizen. Even if you haven't seen Bleach, you know that name, stop playing. But more importantly, Prime Isshin. Since we're on the topic of Prime Isshin, it makes sense to give you a little breakdown on how the hands work as far as Soul Reapers go in the Bleach verse. So, each sword user you see on the screen, named or otherwise, has access to a Zanpakuto. Once again, tough ass name he don't really miss. And said Zanpakuto plays a huge role in Soul Society. The sword is you and you are the sword essentially. The better you understand the soul in the sword, which itself is a part of your own soul, the deeper the bond between user and sword becomes. This naturally will allow said user to become better at hand swapping most of the time, Hanataro, and over time the user's overall power increases. I said all of that to say this: the basic sword you see them use in reality is a compressed version of its true form. Walking around with the uncompressed version allows others to easily trace your Rei Ryoku. The power source in the Bleach verse, Stay With Me Now. And given Soul Reapers are samurai essentially, you can see why this isn't the best result. Captain level Soul Reapers in particular are so astronomically powerful that their uncompressed swords radiate Reiatsu, the physical pressure felt when Rei Ryoku is used in Bleach, Stay With Me Now, that is the equivalent of a skyscraper, meaning being in the proximity of a captain that has released their sword gives the sensation of being crushed by a skyscraper. Now then, this is a friendly reminder that Isshin was a captain. Everything but the rain ultimately ends up with Isshin giving up his powers in order to remain in the human world and start a family with Ichigo's mother. Fast forward later down the line, but before the start of the series, and Isshin is unfortunately widowed, as Masaki Kurosaki, his wife, is murdered. This leaves him to raise the then preteen Ichigo as well as his two infant daughters by himself. Becomes a doctor, does just that. We fuck with Isshin next. Minato Namikaze. If Bleach is popular to hate on, then Naruto/Shippuden is among the most glazed pieces of anime of all time. This man, Minato the Yellow Flash Namikaze, is both a reason for the aforementioned glaze and a man that needs very little introduction in these here anime streets. Let the glazing commence. The first time you lay eyes on this nigga, it's not a flashback, it's not a picture, it's on a motherfucking rock face, which is low-key a tough-ass introduction, I'm not gonna lie. Which immediately lets us, the viewers, know that he's probably not around anymore. Hell, for the longest time, his name was simply the 4th Hokage, which gave Naruto, his son, and you, the viewer, very little to work with in regards to piecing together his whereabouts, until later in the series, that is. One of the most prominent characters in Naruto and the first half of Shippuden is Jiraiya, aka the Sleeper Goat, my favorite Sannin, your favorite Sannin, come on now, who himself could be a valid entry on this list, but he ain't the focus of the video. Jiraiya is best known for being the father figure to Naruto, but more importantly, being the one to teach Naruto his signature move, the Rasengan, a move he makes extensive use of, by the way, I'm not gonna lie. But he's also the one who trained a young Minato. From very early on, Minato was shown to be exceptionally gifted in terms of being a shinobi. Despite the fact, however, he was shown to be an otherwise calm but somewhat shy individual. By the time he earned names like the Yellow Flash, he was already known in the village as a kind, caring individual with the strongest potential to become the next Hokage, the leader of the Leaf Village. Stay with me now. That caring trait is most easily seen when he eventually meets and falls in love with Kushina, Naruto's mother, at which point the viewer begins to see the family man Minato would eventually become. That being said, Minato wouldn't stand side by side with his son until during the 4th Great Ninja War, over a decade after Minato's own passing. On the night of Naruto's birth, mad spoilers inbound by the way, don't at me, the village is attacked by the Masked Man. Said Masked Man also made it his singular objective to 1v1 Minato by any means necessary. To achieve this, taking Naruto, a literal newborn at this point by the way, no points for that, hostage was a key part of the Masked Man's plan. One thing leads to another and the Masked Man is successful in grabbing the newborn and forcing Minato into a face-off. The face-off ends in Minato's victory. We also get one of the coldest Rasengan displays in the entire anime, but not without some drawbacks. See, the Masked Man didn't pull up alone. He also had a fucking demonic 9-tailed fox that was actively putting belt to ass in the village. So yeah, there's that. Anywho, the fox is now tweaking the fuck out, tries to snuff infant Naruto and the series right there and then. Minato wasn't going for that. This man and his wife put themselves between the attack that would have deleted our future favorite Jinchuriki at the cost of their own lives. Before dying though, as a way to save the village, Minato used the last of his chakra, energy in the Naruto universe, stay with me now, to seal the chakra of the 9-tailed fox in both himself and his newborn, Naruto. Lost his life to save his son and his village. Hashirama looking down at you smiling. Next. Monkey D. Dragon. Now see, this individual will without a doubt be the hardest father on the list to make an honest case for. So bear with me, I'ma effectively be over here stretching in order to reach for some of the points that I'm about to make. Monkey D. Dragon is one elusive ass revolutionary. One of the 3 major factions in the world of One Piece, stay with me now. And in truth, that's totally understandable. In the world of One Piece, Dragon is the founder and leader of the Revolutionary Army. They do exactly what revolutionaries do in real life, so there's little explanation needed on my part. What I do need to explain is that this makes Dragon the direct opposition to and the #1 enemy of the world government. So you won't exactly catch him roaming around willy-nilly. The first time we, yes, you and me, meet Dragon is in Loguetown, a solid 100 chapters into the manga series. Just that quickly we know that he's not exactly a present father. When he successfully saves his son, the GOAT, from a bipedal cigarette, real name Smoker by the way. After this one meeting though, any other time we see this man Dragon, he's either talking, sat down somewhere, or in extreme cases, sat down somewhere talking. Goosebumps inducing character writing, I know. Hell, we only find out who this man is, the one who saved Luffy on Loguetown, was from Monkey D. Garp, Dragon's father, Luffy's grandfather, stay with me now, who himself casually reveals it to the rest of the crew. Luffy's reaction, or lack thereof, speaks to the relationship he may have with his father, that being one of total indifference bordering on outright confusion at the concept of even having a father. The GOAT isn't the sharpest, I apologize. As the story inches on and on, however, we increasingly get drip-fed more and more information regarding Dragon, primarily from those around him, like Ivankov, who himself would go on to meet his son Luffy and impel down. From Ivankov, we learn that Dragon indeed does care about his son, despite only appearing on screen with him once in 20 plus years, first seen when we are told that Dragon has a habit of looking to the east whenever the wind blows, because that's the part of the sea he left his son in. Another more subtle hint of his care for Luffy is when he flatly shuts down any questions regarding his son, stating that a child is a parent's greatest weakness. This clearly shows that he acknowledges the danger he could put his son in by simply having others know that they are related. Again, he's the leader of the revolutionaries. The bulk of the information we find out about Dragon is actually revealed in 2025. Crazy work, I know. And in the chapters featuring him, we see a way more active Dragon during an incident known as God Valley. Half-ass arc, a real chef work. I won't get into the nitty-gritty of God Valley, given it's one of the most hype moments in the entire series, and I want you to enjoy that delicacy yourself. Instead, I'm gonna zero in on some of Dragon's actions. The most important among those being the rescuing of a baby Shanks, the same Shanks that would go on to inspire Luffy to become a pirate himself, and one of the coldest characters in the verse, by the way, and every positive action that would eventually be born from that moment. So through this lens, Dragon is largely, not entirely, but largely responsible for the path Luffy is currently on, by way of a series of coincidences, mind you. But still, I'm gonna give him his credit. Dragon is also responsible for allowing one of Luffy's crewmates to train with and join the revolutionaries over a 2-year time period to become stronger. Although the one who sent said crewmate Robin to the revolutionaries to begin with was Bartholomew Kuma. A father so fire, he could objectively be the best in all of anime, but more on him another time. Perhaps one of Dragon's biggest W's in the story overall, however, is the fact that he happened to be the one who saved Sabo, another Go and one of Luffy's brothers, and later allowed him to become an extremely powerful revolutionary in his own regard. Sabo would go on to assist Luffy significantly in the story going forward, and both myself and Robin credit Dragon for creating an environment that allowed him to become powerful enough to do so. With all of that being said, I think it's clear to see Dragon is by far the least active in the life of his child, but this by no means indicates a lack of care towards said child. Now that we've wrapped up Mr. Always Facing East, let's take a look at the pros and cons of each father's approach. Mr. Namikaze was always a stand-up individual. We, yes, you and me, can all agree on that part, right? From as far back as his days in the academy, we would see the type of man he would eventually develop into. By the time he successfully tracked and rescued Kushina, GOAT status was already achieved. Be so serious. But it's the moments like him becoming Hokage, yet still making the time to watch Kushina as she goes on her daily strolls that confirm beyond a shadow of a doubt how much he cares for both her and the then unborn Naruto. So it should come as no surprise to anyone what he was willing to do in order to save baby Naruto's life. Give up his own. I don't think I need to do a great deal of convincing when I say a parent willing to lay down their life for the safety of their child is easily a good parent. If you do still need some convincing though, we can punch in at the 4th Great Ninja War. In between the moments of combat in the war, once the Hokages have arrived to lend their assistance, there are several moments wherein Minato can be seen visibly proud and at times even sad at the life that Naruto has had to live up to that point. Knowing Naruto held no grudges against him for stealing half of a demonic fucking fox inside of him, and seeing how Naruto then used that power for the benefit of the village, I imagine it's a top tier feeling to have as a father. So pros, for Mr. Namikaze, he gave up his life to protect the village and newborn son. Cons, he sealed half of the demonic fox inside of his fucking son, which had a tangible effect on the life said son would live for many years. In my opinion, the pros of his approach easily outweigh the cons. Next up, we have he who remains facing east, Monkey D. Dragon. Dragon is objectively the father we see the least of in regards to the big three, owing largely to the role that he plays within the story, being the leader of the Revolutionary Army. This naturally means he has had less opportunity to interact with and appear in the story alongside his son, Luffy. However, this doesn't necessarily mean he's the least loving of the three fathers. If we're being real, the whole story of One Piece as we know it gets cut significantly shorter without the appearance of Dragon in Logtown to save Luffy from Smoker. This is also something he did not have to do. Keep in mind that this is an action that could have easily blown his cover as a revolutionary, which would cripple the faction as a whole if here he was captured. The reason he gains points here is because he saved Luffy regardless of the danger that may have potentially come to him and the revolutionaries, proving his son matters more to him than the faction he built from the ground himself and all the members within. In a more indirect instance, however, Dragon's actions have a positive effect on Luffy's life by way of saving the people close to him, like his sworn brother Sabo, something that brought Luffy to tears upon realizing he was still alive. As mentioned in his own part of the video, Dragon is also responsible for rescuing baby Shanks, at least initially, which ultimately leads him down a path that would result in Shanks not just becoming a noteworthy pirate himself, but also the pirate most responsible for Luffy's values in the series. So between saving his son from execution, saving his son's brother, and saving his son's future mentor, I think we can all agree that Dragon is a W father. The most present? Absolutely not, however. So pros, he showcases a love for his son in various ways, going as far as to never speak about him out of concern for his safety. Cons, an extremely distant father, to the point that Luffy was confused he even had one. Crazy work, not gonna lie. The goofball former captain himself, Isshin Kurosaki, or Isshin Shiba if you want to get serious about this, that gave up everything for his family. As a byproduct of losing his powers, Isshin was actually in a more unique position than the other two fathers that we've been focusing on. By this I'm saying he's had the ability to genuinely be present at every stage of his children's lives. Despite the fact that during his introduction he was seemingly oblivious to the Soul Society related dangers Ichigo was facing, as the story progressed we find out he's more tapped in than we initially thought. The goofball former captain is in reality somebody that understands it was best to play stupid for the sake of not confusing Ichigo or causing him to worry too much. Being a former captain, Isshin is aware of and actually knows a decent amount of characters that Ichigo would go on to meet. And towards the end of the story, the interactions between Ichigo and Isshin start to reflect this. Once Isshin's role as a Soul Reaper was revealed, his relationship with Ichigo gains the additional layer of direct mentorship, with him being instrumental in Ichigo learning to put belt to ass against Aizen. Different video at some point, maybe. Taking a step back from his relationship with Ichigo alone, the role Isshin adopts for the sake of his two daughters can also be used to showcase his dedication to his family. In the absence of their mother from an early age, he naturally comes to the conclusion that he needs to take on a more light-hearted and comedic approach to their upbringing. There's one standout moment in my opinion that really showcases how good of a father he is to Ichigo. When Ichigo, after failing to sleep the monster that slept his mother, a hollow, keep in mind those are called hollows, tearfully asks his father why he doesn't blame him, again this being Ichigo, for the loss of his wife, Isshin's response was that he doesn't see his son as the reason his wife is gone. He instead sees his son as someone his wife was willing to die to protect. I'll leave it there. What's understood doesn't need to be explained. Immaculate father-son vibes. Pros, quite literally gave up his original life / powers for the sake of his family, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Cons, there are times where his character usage makes very little sense, primarily in like the execution arc, for example. Now that we've discussed the fathers at length, before I give you my conclusion, I want you to head to the comment section and let me know who you think is the best father along with why. Now then, depending on how one approaches the discussion we are about to get into, it's natural that the number one spot is going to be debatable. For example, Isshin gave up his powers for his family, which in and of itself is commendable arse behavior. However, that man Minato really put the whole village on his back while also saving his newborn son. So through that lens, whose sacrifice meant more for his family? If we look at Dragon, the most wanted man in his verse, basically never talking about his son out of fear of what could come to him if the world ever finds out their connection. Is it sacrificing his life? No. But it is giving up any semblance of a relationship with your only son. Like I said, it all depends on the approach one has to the discussion of best father. If we're talking about saving the lives of all of their children, all three of them have done just that. Dragon at Loguetown, Minato during Naruto's difficulty when controlling the Nine Tails, and Isshin when Ichigo was fighting Aizen. So I think we can all agree that all three are multifaceted parental figures. But for the sake of an objective number one, I'm giving it to Isshin Kurosaki. Let me land a bolt before you bleach haters click off the video. And they're all gone. Anyway, if you look at the lengths Isshin Kurosaki goes to in order to maintain his family, playing the unassuming but affectionate father to his children, including Ichigo, to genuinely being one of the reasons Ichigo was able to beat one of his strongest opponents, come on now. Ask any single parent how hard it can be to raise a child, let alone 3 children, and I think you'll start to take my point. Minato, unfortunately, was not around or given the opportunity to be a part of Naruto's life in a similar fashion. And the sentiment is equally as true for Dragon in relation to Luffy, but for different and equally understandable reasons. If you made it this far, much love. You get me? Big love. And if you like to hear more of my anime related takes, I have a podcast you can find me on, Cutthroat Takes.